Welcome to Catch You Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing in the great outdoors, especially down in the most southern region of the continental U.S., the Florida Keys. Catch You Outdoors is hosted by Spotify, also brought to you by your favorite podcast network. So kick back and get a taste of my Florida. This week's episode of Catch You Outdoors is number 119. Seriously? Wow. 119. Okay. Titled Happy New Fishing Year. That's going to be pretty self-explanatory, I would think so. But Happy New Year, everyone. It's here. 2024. With what I hope to be a very fishy year, actually. And I'm actually recording this on New Year's Day. So this is Monday. And yeah, I decided to delay the recording off of Sunday and just bring it in on the new year. Just to start things off on a whole new, I don't know, zigzag. Yeah, right. Let's see. What do we got going on first? Okay, we have all my little messages and things I like to throw out there at you. So here we go. First, the weather report and outlook for the upcoming week here in the Keys, along with some tide and moon information, also handy for the fishing folks. I'll start with the weather outlook. A bit better than it has been, that's for sure. Now, that's saying something, because December was plagued with wind and rain, and it was not fun. This Monday, the 1st of January, today, the low this morning was 57 here in Key Largo. Woo-hoo. I had to wear several layers to go out in the boat this morning, and yes, I went fishing. We'll get in that in just a minute. But however, did manage to crawl up to 68 today, so not bad. And the wind died. That's the most important part of this whole formula. The wind died. It was breezy this morning when I left, but it died. It'll be better tomorrow up until late Thursday the 4th, late in the day. Another front with possible showers and increasing winds will come in after that. I think it's going to get breezy by Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, of next week. So there's another cold front. What else is new? They make it down here now. We'll get to a point where they won't. That'll be February, middle to end of February into March. It'll start to really, they'll push hard to get here, and we may get one or two, but it certainly won't be what it is now or was. Let's see, what else? So the good news is we will be in seasonal temperatures after tomorrow. Lows in the high 60s and highs in the upper 70s. Yay. As a matter of fact, Saturday should be 78. Woohoo, a heat wave. Can't wait. It'll be great. Tide's not so good. You'll have to work to find moving water in the backcountry. Moon is going to be waning all week. Yep. It's terrible. But anyway, that's the way it is. There's a new moon next week on the 11th. So today's the 1st. So the rest of this week, you'll have this waning moon. And then by next Thursday, not this following Thursday, it'll be a new. Now, around new, it gets pretty good. So if you can just last until the 9th or 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, right in that time frame, you will get some decent moving water. But up until then, the waning moons are not fun. And especially if you're fishing up here in Key Largo or even down toward Tavernier, where our water flow is not as strong as it is when you get to Alamorada South. So we just naturally don't have a lot of water moving anyway. And then you add the waning moon to it and it gets even worse. So you have to work hard. You really do. So on a personal note to myself, never ever shop at Publix during Hell Week here in the Keys. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, or you missed part of last week, Hell Week is the week between Christmas and New Year's down here. Everyone and their brother descends on this place to have a good time, and that's fine. I get it. But if you're a local, stay the heck out of the way, and don't go to Publix at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Very, very bad idea. Especially on a rainy, windy day, which is what I managed to do. I'm like, I'll just go shopping today. It's raining. Well, that was exactly what everybody else in the world did because they couldn't do anything else. So they went to the store. My new song, Key West Town, is now available on just about every music download listening service. Thanks for all the downloads of the song. I am really appreciating that. And for the feedback, Billy Davidson, musical artist and producer, has thrown out the welcome mat to me to go ahead and submit more songs for this upcoming year. I am very excited about that, looking forward to it, and have already gone back and pulled some of the golden oldies for rewrites and updates and found several that I really like. So doesn't mean that you will like them, and doesn't mean that Billy will like them, but we're gonna throw them out there and see what happens. Fishing report, and yes, there is one. No, there's two. That's right, there's two. Last Wednesday, the 27th, the wind started to let down, and then the sun came out. Hallelujah. This all happening on the full moon. That was some kind of Christmas, New Year miracle. I ain't kidding you. Water in the back country was surprisingly normal in clarity, and the temps in the morning were 70.6, and the early afternoon they went up to 72. And the fish were very, very happy. I was happy that they were happy. My first stop, I got 2 decent snook, back-to-back cast. And then a big jack and a couple of big kudas. Honestly, that made my whole day right there. I could have just stopped and gone home, but you know that I would not do that at 7:30 in the morning. No, that's not even a chance. I rigged up a Z-Man jig head with glow eyes, something new. Yeah, it was slightly different color than I've used before. And then used a fairly new gulp color as well. I say fairly new because I had used the grub version before, but this time it was the swimming mullet in pink shine. That's the color. Janelle had some luck with this a couple of weeks ago, but it still felt untested, so I used it all day. I really did. The pure white is nice, but on this day, that pink shine was the best. More testing will be done. I promise you. I also picked up a brand new jig head from Z-Man called the Micro Shad Heads. Heads. Get it? H-E-A-D-Z. Heads. Here's a quote from their literature. The high-end micro finesse jig head sports a chiseled, minnow-shaped head, lifelike 3D eyes, a compact yet powerful black nickel hook, and a hybrid split grip and wire keeper that holds all types of soft plastic securely. It is really remarkable. It caught my eye. It really did. I was just basically checking the Z-Man stuff on their website. You know, a lot of new stuff has started to really hit the market since going way back to summertime when the iCast was on. You know, we don't see anything generally until Christmas time, so that's when I really start checking to see if any of the new stuff is out. Well, yep, lo and behold, they had quite a few items on their site. So I ordered a package. They're 1/8 ounce heads. They're very, very pointed. That's, they're like a bullet. And the attachment for soft plastics is fantastic. It's ribbed. It doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere when you push a piece of plastic onto it, which is nice. So when the little guys are tugging on the tail, they don't pull it off, which is great. And the shape makes it aerodynamic too, so it casts a mile. And then it also sinks quickly. It doesn't have any bluntness to it at all. So when it goes in the water, it pretty much goes down. So if you're working in an area in 3 to 4 feet, or you're trying to get something on the bottom quickly, I would recommend it. And it's obviously really good in deeper waters. I used the hot pink color, matched it with the pink shine swimming mullet, and it got hit by a big jack in the open water of Florida Bay. I mean, I went out there. I'll tell the story here. I went out after being way in the back. I came back down to Florida Bay and went out to one of my favorite areas. And when I got there, it was slightly protected from north wind. It was dead calm is what it was. And there were blowups happening, and there was a pretty good sized pods of bait. Well, not great. These were about as big as 10 by 10, like a decent little bedroom size, a circle of white bait. And they were being busted on occasionally. But the real cool thing was the frigate birds. There were frigate birds above, and there were pelicans on the water resting, but jumping up whenever something happened. And the frigates were just leading the way. All you had to do is just watch the frigates. And then when they started tight circles, just cast in the middle. And I got a whopper of a jack. doing that. And I love catching these things. That jack was over 6 pounds. It was fantastic. I love big jacks. And he bit that little pink head and pink shine soft plastic. That's all that mattered to me. And I suspect it's because, they're cruising from spot to spot looking for bait. And that thing probably fell near him or in front of him and then dove for the bottom. And that's all it took for him to go after it. So I will be adding that to my regular arsenal. Let's see. And then I went out again this morning. Yeah, Monday, the 1st. Couldn't think of a better way to spend New Year's Day. Nope. I also wanted to see how much different it would be with these much cooler temperatures and cooler water temperatures, because we had quite the cool down over the past 3 or 4 days. It was tougher. I even wrote that in my note with an exclamation mark. It was tougher. It was. Water temp had dropped to 68 in most places, and in a couple places, 66.5 degrees. That's very cool for the Florida Keys. Of course, that's up in the top end of Florida Bay, all the way up into the Everglades, way up into the Everglades, into the shallow, sticky stuff. And it's skinny up there. So with the winds the way they've been and the temperatures being low, the water turns over pretty fast. So the water temperature drops, and that was to be expected, to be honest with you. But my first stop that has been a regular, nothing. And I thought, oh gosh, all right. So this is going to be a photograph day of pretty mangroves and sunrises and, birds. And I thought, well, let's just pack it in and go to the other side of this big bay that I've been fishing in up there, up in the top of the Florida Bay. So I scooted across the bay and I went to a whole nother area. And this was more protected too. And the sun by now is up. This is probably closer to 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So I was starting to get some pretty good radiant sun on the water. And I'm probably about my third cast along the mangroves. It got walloped by a snook. And I'll be honest with you, I was stunned. I was like, this is really cool. I can't believe this is happening, but this is really cool. And I tried to pat myself on the back for trying the other area and reasoning why they should be there. And of course, the water was still 68. Snook are not fond of cold water. They don't like it when it cools off. And it also pushed the bait out. All that was in there was rain bait. Lots and lots of little tiny schools of rain bait were everywhere. So I guess that was enough for them. And not too long after that, I got another really nice one, much bigger than the first one. The second one was probably 26, 27. The first one was probably around 20 inches. No jacks today. However, I did get 3 really decent kudas, and I missed a couple, and saw a lot of big fish today. Lethargic, kind of cruising the bottom in 2 feet of water, like I don't care, and I'm not going to eat what you throw. That kind of attitude. I saw one big snook. Oh, got a refusal from one that was probably 30, without exaggerating. Nice snook coming at me. So I shut the trolling motor down, just waited and sat and watched him come, and made a nice cast out in front of him. It dropped. He looked, and then he turned away and did what all snook do that are jerks. He turned toward the mangrove, and stuck his thumb in his nose and waved his fingers at me as he went. That drives you crazy. Of course, I had to make multiple casts where he went to no avail, and I knew there would be no avail. So anyway, what can I say? So I got 2 nice snook and 3 decent kudas, and that made me happy, because honestly, I didn't think I was going to catch a damn thing. Throwing pretty much the same stuff I mentioned earlier, the pink shade, on mostly on the standard jig head, the Z-Man jig head. Let's see, what were the eyes? Oh, I used gold today, golden eyes today, instead of the kind of the pearl color, that pearl or glow color, I think they call it. I went with gold, and it worked fine. Got some fish. I was happy. After I didn't get anything on the other color, I thought I'll switch and see what happens. I did spy one very, very large bull shark. I will confess it's the first one I've seen back there. It's really weird, because most areas of the Keys that you fish, you will see bull sharks. They love to cruise the mangrove edges looking for an suspecting fish of any kind that's got his back turned. Oops. And, kapow, it's over. And I have not seen one up in the way back at all. I've seen little bitty like bonnet heads and things like that, but no really sizable fish in that area, in this particular area. So it's kind of interesting to see one. I was like, whoa, what are you doing here? And he went right by the boat glaring at me, as bull sharks do. Let's see, what else was... I took the drone with me today. I took the drone up there onto the flats with me and took some drone shots. I ran the drone up to about the max, 250 to 300 feet, and just started doing panoramic views with the drone to get an idea of where I was and what I was seeing. It's really remarkable. The bay that I'm in is a very, very small part of what's going on up there. And there are all kinds of little waterways and flats and things that I can't possibly get to. And even if I got to them, I couldn't float a boat in there. But it explains a lot. Seeing what I see in the videos, it gives me an idea of where the water's coming from, how it gets to where I am, and where it's going after that. And I have found that river is very, very important. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas said it best: the river of grass. That's really what this thing is. And when you start figuring out how that water moves, where it comes from and where it goes, that's what's driving the bait, and that's what drives the fish to the bait. So it's science, people. It's not luck. You really, really have to work at this to kind of get it right. So, but anyway, I had 2 really good fishing days, and this one was tough. I'm not going to say it wasn't tough today, but I still enjoyed myself. It was sunny. It was pretty. The wind let down. It's a beautiful ride home. It was very quiet on the water today. Monday is go home day on Hell Week. If everybody's, gets here for Christmas, they go right up to New Year's Eve. New Year's morning, man, people got to go back to work on Tuesday. So it seems to me they just park it out of here, and that's okay. It was nice having you all, and I hope to see you next time, that kind of thing. So Janelle and I did something we haven't done in a long time. We went shopping, shopping off island. We actually went to up to Homestead, and which isn't that far for us. It's about a 20, 25-minute ride from Key Largo when the traffic's just right on the 18-mile stretch. And it was. We played the game. It was like Sunday morning. We thought, let's do this because there's nobody out and around. They were all out drinking late on Saturday. And it'll be a while before they get out of bed. And then they got to go have brunch and pull themselves together. So we thought, let's go early. So we did. And we blasted off. We went up to Lowe's to do a little garden shop stuff. And then we headed to Target so Janelle could do her stuff shopping. All those little things that Target has that she has to have. And we did that. That was kind of fun. And then I took her to RF Orchids. That's the initials R and F Orchids in Homestead, which is without a doubt one of the most fabulous orchid selling gardens, whatever you want to call it. It's fantastic. It's a wonderful place. And I'd been there a couple of times. She'd never been. And I said, you got to go see this place. And while we were there, what's really interesting about these small places like that, I have been having some trouble with my orchids not blooming. They suddenly decided they didn't like me anymore. And I've been attributing it to weather and things like that. I think it's me. I'm like, And I asked this lady, she was working in there, very nice, very friendly. She's back potting and repotting orchids and stuff. And I said, look, here's how I do my orchids. And she was like, oh, no. You don't want to pot them that way. You want to put them in this mixture, not that mixture. And the mixture I use is pretty standard stuff. It's wood chips. And you load the wood chips, these small little chips all around the roots. And you add some other stuff. You put moss and a couple of other things in there to keep it in place. And she said, no. She said, the problem is if you're fertilizing, they aren't getting the fertilizer. And I'm like, really? When you fertilize orchids, you don't just dump fertilizer all over the place. You basically specifically hit the plant, and you want all of that to be absorbed by them. You don't want it to go anywhere else. It never occurred to me that the wood chips I've been using and that a lot of other people use will soak up the water when you put it in there, which means they soak up the fertilizer and the plant doesn't get any. Ta-da. Man, this is all so logical. This is just like fishing. When you learn something in fishing and you just go like, duh. And this was my duh moment with my orchids. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what do I do? So she showed me these bags of the stuff that they use. I'd already walked through, and I was noticing that their stuff that they're putting their orchids in was radically different than what I'm doing. She says, oh, Lord, we sell the mix here. Just get you the mix and go home and get to work. So I did. got about 4 bags of this stuff. Went home and I literally repotted every orchid I had in the back, hanging in the trees. I mean, seriously, folks, this was an all afternoon job after I got back. But it made me feel good. It looks good. I will now feed them, and I will now believe that the wood is not going to steal all the fertilizer away. So there's something I learned. If you're an orchid person and you're using that Phalaenopsis wood package that you get at the stores, don't do that. There's a whole nother way to do it. And if you want to know more information about it or what it looks like, send me a note, and I'll be happy to fire off a photograph of it and tell you what you need. So there you go. But that was pretty cool. After that, we headed over to Roberts is Here. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, Roberts is Here is in Florida City. It's a orchard, garden, fresh fruit, vegetable stand with yummy things to drink and eat. It's really, really cool. It's just a tradition. It's just something that's been here forever, and people just gravitate to it. Heck, we got there we timed it so we'd be there around 9:30. We started early because, Lowe's opens at 6. Target opened at 8, I guess it was. And so we were just kind of playing our way. RF was open at 9. So it's probably about 9:30, 10 when we got there. Place was packed. And it's really wild. It's in the middle of nowhere. It really is. But it's so cool how it attracts all these people. And the guy who runs it, Robert, is usually there behind the counter, running the registers and helping out. We got lots of delicious fresh fruit. Oh, got some of those beautiful Florida-grown corn. It's that kind of almost white, but not quite. Some big avocados, some fresh big tomatoes. Like the people up north right now, if you buy a tomato, it's made of styrofoam. These are like real tomatoes. I'm sorry about your styrofoam tomatoes in the winter. Tangerines. Star fruit. We got all kinds of yummy things that we're working on now. So I love going to that place, and we need to make more of a habit of that. We've been very, very bad about this. So I want to make sure that I get myself there. And then, as I said, I headed back home and spent the rest of the afternoon repotting orchids, and which is great. I love working in the garden. If you can't go fishing, work in a garden. It's good. It's good for the brain. It really is. Book time. I finished Everglades by Randy Wayne White, and yes, it was very good. I'll highly recommend it. I will move on to the next one, but not right at the moment. At the moment, I went back to the Matt Royal series by H. Terrell Griffin. The second in the series is Murder Key. Ooh. I love the titles. Anyway, Murder Key takes place in Longboat Key, and it started off with a bang. No pun intended. Oh, well, almost a bang. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to say anything else. So the book is set in Longboat Key on the Florida Southwest coast. Didn't take me long to get into it. I can already tell that the author has improved his writing from his book number 1, which is really kind of cool, because the same thing happens to me when I write. You suddenly do these phrases. You go, that doesn't sound right. You got to fix that. And these writers, it's fun to read their very first novel and then move to the second and third and fourth and see how much they improve and in describing things and getting visuals to you, so you feel like more into the story. And he's done that. So I'm only about 100 pages into this. And I believe it's not much more than a 225 page novel. So mystery novel. So looking forward to it. So far, so good. A bit more concise. And it seriously has kept my attention. So I'll keep you posted. My new book about fishing the Keys is coming right along. I'm getting the photos lined up, and that kind of feels like the final stage for me before sending it to the editor for the final look-see. So it's just a matter of getting these photos. I got a photo box, and what I do is I put lures and things in. I take pictures, all kinds of little detail things. I want knots, things like that, to make sure that I get it into the book so that when you read something, you have a visual to look at. And that is the hardest part about putting the thing together, but I'm there. I'm doing it. I mentioned last week that here comes useless information. I'm holding on to it till the end of the podcast today. And that's how it was on my old radio show. I thought it appropriate to kind of keep that tradition. So hang in there. It's coming later in the podcast. I did not forget. It will happen. So, and I have an announcement with that too. So hang in there. Don't go away. So Happy New Fishing Year is the podcast title this week. And what I want to talk about is what to expect for January when fishing a good part of the Keys, like all of them. You have to keep in mind, this has happened to me writing this book. So I'm going to speak from experience. The island chain's 106 miles long, so the fishing can vary in the wintertime from place to place. Okay? I mean, it's not like summer. Summertime, when you have stable, hot temperatures, humid nights, very few extremely crazy windy days unless you have a tropical storm approaching. It's all very normal in the summertime, and it's very boring too at times. But everything is pretty much the same from top to bottom, from all 106 miles. Some of the Keys are more open in the wintertime, and some are not. Open to exposure, open to weather. Some areas have mostly shallow water. Winter cold will affect those areas differently than the deeper water areas. So what I'm trying to say is if you're looking at a charter captain's report, a fishing report from, say, Key West, it'll be totally different in Marathon and Islamorada and Key Largo. It just will. There's no way it's going to be exactly the same between those four locations and 106 miles distance between Key Largo and Key West. The problem you run into is that the waters that are exposed to wind, waves, turnover in the water, things like that, will cool off faster. Fish will move differently because the bait moves differently. And it's all about the bait. If you've got white bait moving around, you've got rain bait, you've got ballyhoo, you can have whatever it is if it's relocating or moving because it's being pushed by weather, fish go with it. And that's going to occur at a different rate from the top of the Keys to the bottom of the Keys. In Key Largo, we have the good luck of being protected by a rather large area of land above us. I mean, quite frankly, the whole southern tip of Florida sits really close to us. The 18-mile stretch is called the 18-mile stretch for a reason. There is 18 miles above us. There's water in between that, but even that's spotty. The water is it's a series of sounds and bays, which are full of mangroves and full of areas that are protected. So we just don't get blasting winds unless it's really bad, like gale force. Whereas you just move down to Islamorada, they have a much larger bay. They have 27 miles between them and the mainland of Florida, the lower mainland of Florida. Further down, Marathon has no protection. Big Pine, no protection. Key West, Lord, no, they don't have protection either. They're out in the open. The Gulf of Mexico is above them, and there is nothing else up there. So when the wind blows and it's cold, they're going to suffer for that. When the wind blows and it's cold here, we don't suffer as much. We will, but not as much. So the fishing report you see from the guy down in Key West going, well, man, it's awesome. It's probably not what's happening up here, and vice versa. So you really have to keep things in perspective and think, okay, so where is it and what happens down there? What makes it different? Well, Key West, for example, is surrounded by really, really deep water. They don't have a lot of real skinny stuff. They do have it. Don't get me wrong. It's just not really crazy skinny like it is to the north of, say, Islamorada all the way up to Key Largo. And that really affects fishing. It affects temperature. It affects bait movement. And that affects fish movement. And so there you go. You have kind of your hands full trying to figure it out in the wintertime. So don't rely on fishing reports that you read and see from one area that, say you're going to Tavernier or you're going to go fish Islamorada, and you see this wild, great report from down in Marathon or a terrible report from Marathon. Don't rely on that. You really need to center yourself on exactly where you're going in the winter. In the summer, you can pretty much relate what's going on the water for all areas. At least that's what I found. Like I said, let me explain a little bit more about it. In the winter, it's different based on winds and how far and down you are and what your protection, like I said. But in the summer, that doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. I want to clarify that. So fishing is generally easier when it's less windy. Simple. If you have protection from wind, it's going to be a whole lot easier to do that. Other thing to keep in mind, too, is the backcountry waters, for our waters, are less salty. And it's something that took me a while to really play with and figure out what was going on. Okay, bait movement. Bait does not like fresh water. saltwater bait. I should say, let's just take the bait. White bait, threadfin herrings, ballyhoo, things like that. Even mullet. They're not real wild about fresh. Well, no, mullet will be. That's incorrect. Mullet don't care. Strike that. The fresh water that we get comes directly out of the glades back to the river of grass. I mean, that's really what this is. This water flows down from the glades, comes right through, runs right into us, and right through the Everglades and right into our upper bays. Blackwater Sound, Little Blackwater, Long Sound, and all the other bays that are around and to the north and northwest of Key Largo. So we have a pretty good influx of fresh mixed in with our water. And when that gets ridiculously high, lots and lots of rain, which we've had, it pushes that bait around. So you really have to keep in mind that's another little thing you have to pay attention to. When you get down to Marathon, there's almost no. You get to Key West, there ain't no fresh water. It's all salty salt. And also on the flip side of Key Largo, you go out in the ocean, that's going to make a difference there too. It's a crazy, complex problem. I mean, you really have to pay attention to this to become a better fisherman in this area. I have learned that. I've learned it the hard way. The ocean side, pretty simple by comparison. This is for the winter. This is for January is what we started talking. I went off on one of my usual tangents. It's always salty to a fault and will stay that way no matter what happens. The temps will also stay much more steady than the backcountry waters. So fishing there is easier. Yep, it really is. If you have the boat for it, of course, because wintertime is going to be bumpier. Always more breezes. I really can't imagine getting skunked on the patch reefs in the Atlantic Ocean any time of year. I just can't. It's so easy. Every time I've been out there as a rank novice about the waters off of Key Largo, that's how I started here. I never fished there until we moved here. We spent all of our time down in Islamorada and fishing the Atlantic Ocean off Islamorada. It's really no different, quite honestly. You go out, you look for a patch reef, you look at the bottom in 30 feet of water, you go, look at that little pile of rocks right there. Look at that little cut through there. Ooh, that looks good. Put some chum out, put the bait out, and you got a fish. I mean, it really ain't that difficult. Now, going for specific species, yeah, it can get a little more difficult trying to get the fish that you want. Lots and lots of big yellowtail, things like that. But I can't imagine getting skunked on a patch reef. In honesty, I cannot wait to get my little boat back out there for a day on the reefs. Winter is just not conducive to that. There's not enough time between the fronts for the water to settle enough for a little boat. What happens is you get a big front, wind blows, waves come up, we start to get 5 to 7 footers, the wind stops blowing. We get 3 footers, we get 4 to 5s, then we get 3 to 4s, and then we get down to about 2, which is manageable, except in a flat skiff, you can take a wave if you're not careful, even in a 2. Depends on how tight the chop is. And then what happens? Another front comes along. So you never really get that long area, that long piece of time where you can go out front. And I'm pining. I'm waiting for that to happen. Winter brings all kinds of fun fish to the offshore waters. Spanish mackerel start appearing everywhere, and they really have. Spanish mackerel offshore all the way down to, off the tip of Florida. Out off of Flamingo and that area out into the Gulf of Mexico have been just wild. Some of the pictures I've been seeing, these are big Spanish mackerel, nice mackerel. Bit closer to the last 50 miles of the Keys, I should say. So in other words, from Islamorada is 70 miles. So Marathon south down to Key West, you really get into the Spanish mackerel. Further up, you don't as much, but there are quite a few on the Atlantic side because I'm starting to see a lot of good photographs from the guys here that are fishing the Atlantic in bigger boats. There's also wahoo, blackfin tuna, and sailfish. Sailfish love bumpy winter days. They really do. Messier the better if you can get out there. If you got a boat that'll handle it. The wahoo, you can troll the weed lines for wahoo. They come in pretty close this time of year. They come well into the 40, 50 foot range, 100 foot, 150 feet, which is not hard to get to off of Key Largo. And the blackfin tuna, of course. Blackfin tuna seem to be there all the time. I don't have the experience to tell you if it's really a much, much larger number in the winter than summertime. I would think maybe not, maybe more close to the same, but there have been quite a few catches of that I've seen in reports. The patch reef just means park yourself in 40 feet of water in the winter, put a chum bag out back, witness what happens as all the bait starts to come up to it. You start getting ballyhoo and all kinds of little baits. Next thing you know, the fish show up. Put a line in the water and catch a big fish. It ain't that tough. All right, let's get on to useless information here. I've mentioned this before. Before I hit the button on this, I want to send a big time personal thanks to my former producer of my radio show. Real Talk was the name of the show. It was in Fort Myers. It was on the ESPN network there on Saturdays. And Rick was, and still is, one of the best in the business. He managed to steer me through each and every Saturday morning for 3 hours, and is also responsible for this podcast coming into being. Yep, I asked his advice a couple of years ago, and then he said, do it. He said, do it. I said, I miss the mic. I miss just talking to people, just throwing information out there. He says, just do it. He says, everybody's got one. Yours will be good. I'm like, okay, thanks, buddy. And so far, so good. So anyway, so I contacted him and I said, I really need something from you. And he's like, I said, do you remember that crazy intro you did for me for my useless information segment that I did on the radio? And he goes, yeah, man. And he says, I'll do one for you. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. And so I got it just a little while ago, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to do my best to mix it in here, and we're going to drop it into place. So here we go.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
Okay, so here we go. In the past, I always did 3 of these. I see no reason to change that. So, number 1, the forget-me-not flower, according to German legend, gets its name from the last words of a knight who drowned while trying to pick some from the riverside for his lady. I have this vision of a fully dressed knight in armor falling into the water. That would be so bad. Number 2, did you know that the phrase sleep tight originated when mattresses were set upon ropes woven through the bed frame, not springs? To remedy sagging ropes, one would use a key called a bed key to tighten the ropes. I once slept on an antique bed similar to that. Yes, I'm that old. Yeah, sleep tight. You could do that by drinking too, I suppose. Number 3, had to include this one. The term Mayday, used for signaling for help after SOS, comes from the French Mayday. It's spelled M''AIDEZ, which is pronounced Mayday and means help me in French. And there you have it, folks. A big thank you to Rick Church for putting that together for me. I really, really appreciate it. And yes, this will continue until I get lots and lots of hate mail. Then again, it might continue anyway. Have a wonderful New Year, people. Please spend some time outside if you can. Put on your mittens and a hooded parka if you need to. Boy, that's about where I was today. But get out there. Fresh air is good for you, no matter what it does to your nose. It might turn it rosy red, but it's okay. But get out there, really and truly. Even if it's cold, it's better outside than being caught inside. Thanks much for listening. Thank you, listeners who have supported my podcast over the past few years. If you enjoy listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. Website is catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and a schedule of what's to come. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.